Hello, this is David Goldsmith and welcome to Project Moonhunt Foundation, where our directive is to achieve a box with a roof and a door on the moon, a moon hut, through the accelerated development of an Earth and space-based ecosystem, and to take the paradigm shifting those endeavors and turn them back on Earth to improve how we live on Earth for all species. We're going to be covering the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more you could learn if you come back to us and say you're interested. What we're going to be covering to help you to understand it are 3 different sections, each one designated by the red lines, so you can follow along in a clockwise configuration. Let's start back in 2014. I just spent 9 hours at NASA Ames facility. I was sitting having lunch, and during that conversation, it came down to how would we achieve living in space. Now, I'm not a space person. I love Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek. I'm not one of those individuals who looks up all the time. So I said to them, do you really want to know how to deliver and live in space? And for over an hour, I sat there and described a construct that when I was done, they said they'd never heard anything like this before. And that started a journey along with NASA for years and years and years to develop what I'm going to share with you. What I said was I felt like we were doing a shotgun to space and we really needed to be a rifle. The human species need to collaborate and work together to achieve a box with a roof and a door on the moon, a moon hut. NASA named us Project Moonhunt. That individual, those 4 to 8 people, would stay on the moon, go all the way around and then return. Imagine what would happen if that happened. Imagine how young children would look up and be inspired, how adults would be interested in financing projects, how insurance companies would say, I'd like to get involved, how education would be transformed, how governance would be remodified to think of the future, how paradigm shifts would happen. In this event, in this achievement, we would be initiating what we call the Mirth ecosystem. We're not going to be starting this we're not going to be starting the 4th industrial revolution. It's the age of infinite possibilities and resources. The Mirth ecosystem is a designated line that separates the moon and Earth as one construct, that we actually need and work with the moon. Imagine individuals living on the moon. You would be able to sit in your home and say, we have people on 2 different rocks floating in space. The truth is, though, when it comes to the moon, is that we need the moon. The moon directs our tides. Animals and biology and our ecosystem revolves very much around moon activity. So this is not something new. I also learned in those whole experiment, or how we would get to the moon, that a lot of amazing things have happened in the process in the past. And I'll bring it up now and then come back to it later. Innovations need to be created to live in space. And you use them all the time and may never have thought about them. When we work towards space, innovations come back on Earth. For example, have you ever seen a plane being de-iced? The boots on the plane, those black sleeves over the wings, that's space. Firefighters, the outfit they're wearing is space. The tank on the back is space, used for scuba diving and hydrogen cars and oxygen for individuals. Glasses that are scratch resistant is space. Solar panels are space. Exercise equipment used in a gym or at home comes from space. Baby food, the hand tools, the cordless hand tools we use today, space. GPS is space. Freeze-dried food, even the weather we have. Water filtration, air filtration, all space, space, space. Coming back and changing how we live on this planet. Could you think of a day in your experience, if you think of all the innovations, there was over 2,000 that NASA has on their website. Think of all the innovations that have happened and how we can't live today a single day without space. You get a weather report, space. The movement of vehicles is space. Your GPS is space. Your phone has space tech in it. Even your mouse has some technology that has come from space. Space is part of Earth. It is how we live our everyday. So the key question then is, if this is so important, if it's influencing us, what do we need to do, or how would you build this whole space activity up? Well, we'd have a phased development of the moon. The first would be the box with a roof and a door, the moon hut. 4 to 8 people going around. But the second is not to go towards research or to go through tourism because they're unsustainable. It is to develop an industrial park. You know what I'm talking about, an industrial park where organizations can rent out 40 square meter or 40 square feet, and they can build and develop products that can be sold to Earth, new materials. Potentially they could have new pharmaceuticals, a new perfume that's developed on the moon, space rocks or space mining. Sure, there's going to be research. Sure, there's going to be other activities. But the selling between the moon and Earth is this mirth economy. It's not unlike the way old history has discussed or translated stories of travel. Do you remember the story of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, where they went to looking for the New World? When they got there, they left some individuals there. They came back. They told everybody about what they found, and money was raised, and eventually an economic system was built. We need to have that mirth economy starting to flourish. Now, the phase 3 would be extended stay. The extended stay would be like a hotel. You'd have your own room, your own shared services, maybe all the food would be together, and you'd have a even pool table, a billiards table, so with heavier balls so that people could play, like a small hotel. So when you're living in the industrial park, it's going to be challenging. There's not going to be a lot of space, and just like in the military, people share beds. They're called hot bunks. Someone sleeps for 8 hours, they get out, the next person gets in, the bed is still hot. And someone gets out after 8 hours, another one gets in. Here we live and we extend a little bit more towards that normal phase. I didn't know it the day I was bringing this up until the individual said, you know, extended stay, Bigelow has been working on facilities for the moon. Well, this is our phase 3. It reinforces the industrial park and can continue to develop that mirth ecosystem. Phase 4 is community. Now, I know you've thought about community. Community like when you walk outside your home and you see homes or apartments. It's not going to be like that. Community is going to be full of corporations and organizations who are going to want to be on the moon to do development or research. There could be a mining company. It could be Microsoft. It could be IKEA. It could be Alibaba. Organizations that want to expand to the moon, they'll send 10, 12 people who will work together to do the work that they're looking to do. So you'll have pharmaceuticals, miners, new materials, but you might also have researchers and government and military. But our focus is to develop that Earth and space-based ecosystem. We call this the Moon Hut mission. It's a technology project because solving this is not easy. I learned not long ago that today on this planet, at this time, there is not a single rocket that can get us to the moon. I had thought we had probably at least one of them to do that. There's a lot more technology that has to go into doing this than we've ever thought of before, and that will create new inventions, new ideas that can be used back on Earth, and I'll explain that later. So this is the Moon Hut mission. And doing it this way, by achieving that first rifle, that box with a roof and a door on the moon and individuals living, instead of our normal trajectory of getting to the moon or living in space, the combined effort will accelerate in our timeline. We get there faster. The reason I say this is we're pragmatic. The first event I ever went to was in Hawaii. Buzz Aldrin was there. The individual from France who helped put a rover on a comet was there. I was told it was some of the top people in the entire space industry had gotten together. And with my limited knowledge and not being a jerk about it, I would say your business can't survive. It won't make it. We're not ready. This is the wrong timing. And sure enough, every business that I said wouldn't make it did not. We want to be pragmatic. This is not something that will happen in a short period of time. We have to be careful of the stories that are out there and the timelines delivered because we keep on missing them. Let me give you a simple example about how timelines were so far off. I don't know about you, but I looked outside my window today and I didn't see a flying car. I remember growing up being told that by the 2000s we'd have flying cars. I remember being told a lot, and yet I woke up this morning, I was in a bed. I had sheets on me and a blanket. That's the exact same thing I had when I was a little boy. I used a shower, I used a toilet, I had water coming out, and I went down to eat and there was a gas flame and a microwave and a refrigerator. All very old tech with new advances put onto them. We're not in the world of the Jetsons, in the world of Star Trek, or any of these advanced civilizations at this time. So our Moon Hut mission is what Project Moon Hut is about, and we want to make sure that we achieve a box with a roof and a door on the moon, and it will take some time to build. You might be asking yourself, okay, David, I got it, I see it, but how? And this is where it becomes a little interesting. At the time in which I was working on this, I had a computational social science, artificial intelligence, machine learning company with network analysis and all sorts of tech that we were putting together. And I realized at that point that a few things were happening. It does start with Earth. We have to start with Earth. We don't start with the moon. But we have to look at the ecosystem that exists. And I saw that the ecosystem of space was to some degree in chaos. I mean, not chaos in the front that everybody is all over each other, but there's no structure. There's very little rhyme and reason to an outsider especially. It's a $350 billion business for sure, but it's a very tight-knit group, so much so that everybody knows one another when they go to an event. It's actually scary how much everybody knows. We have a podcast series called The Age of Infinite, and when I show individuals the list of people we've interviewed, they all say, oh my God, these are amazing people. Because they do know one another. Even the barriers to language to the industry are very difficult. That's why we don't call it lunar. We call it the moon. We don't call it cislunar. We don't use any of those terms. We say the Mirth ecosystem. And we're not focused on exploration, science, planetary expansion, writing a book and becoming famous. It's not about tourism. What we need to do is take this chaos and using data and PR and marketing, we need to increase this ecosystem. We need to make it bigger. We need to increase the speed that innovation is happening. And I'll explain to you why. Because I believe later, there's about a 40-year convergence we have to be careful of from today. We need to increase the quality of the materials and the innovations that happen. We need to drive down costs to get to space, and we need to reduce barriers, whether it be funding-wise or government-wise. Remember, we get to the moon and our funding will increase, and governments will be more likely to open up their purses, their wallets, to get people to the moon. Now, if you follow here, I've got two different arrows going down. Now, let me go over this first and then go across. In our construct, we have 5 avatars. There's a lot more to this. There's a whole video on this, but there are 5 avatars, and you could be a mixture of many of them. But let's start from this end and move over. In the space industry, in this group, there are, right now, there are space people. There are engineers, business owners, rocket scientists on Earth today and eventually in space. But if you talk to many of them and you did a search for them, or you were engaging in the industry, you'd notice that it was kind of difficult to find parts and suppliers and connections and alliances and investment. It's more challenging than you'd think. So then the second person is a person who works in the space industry. Now, what's the difference between the two? You could be a rocket scientist, and then you're in the space industry, but let's say you're an accountant. You work for SpaceX. Do you have to love space to work for SpaceX? Absolutely not. You could be just great at accounting. You could be great at fabricating. You could be great at anything that would enable that organization to run. Maybe you're a great IT person, but that doesn't mean you know anything about space. These individuals are part of this ecosystem. But these 3 groups are not as much part of this ecosystem, and they should be. There is the enthusiast. You know who they are. They love space. They look up space. They watch all the rockets take off. They read. They take courses. They tinker. They go to events that are put on by the European Space Agency. They love space. They're not part of that ecosystem. They're on the fringe. But these are where many of those ideas are going to come from. The 12-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 19-year-old, the 36-year-old, the 50-year-old working in their garages. We need to bring them into the ecosystem. There are people out there who really don't care about space. They always ask, why are we working on space? But yet, if I was to tell you that there was an ecosystem that people could take advantage of opportunistically, well, that's a whole different story. Let's say you work for a company, $7.5 billion company that I know of off the top of my head. Nobody on the board cares about space. However, they just found out that they sell to 2 companies in the space industry a good amount of business. Well, now that they know that, they can expand their services. If you think of someone like Salesforce, you don't think of them as servicing the space industry, but they do. They supply the Salesforce technology for organizations to secure loans or to go out and sell their services. There are many companies in the ecosystem who don't care about space, and yet they're involved in it. We need to bring them into the space ecosystem, make it organized in a way that they could take advantage of it. And I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, this could be a means of investment or opportunity that they can lead their lives on Earth. And then there's the last part, the social purpose. And I'm not going to go over that in detail, but that's the purpose. Who lives on this planet and wants to have a social cause, wants to have a purpose, or an organization who's interested in delivering something different for the future of their children and their children's children and their children's children's children. So what I've just described to you with the first 2 is the ecosystem. Now it's organized. It's a $350 billion industry. But if it was restructured and cleaned house, and then we brought all these other players and created a much more bigger ecosystem, the future Mirth ecosystem, where normal business happens every day, that would be amazing. I personally, David, am a person who works in the space industry. With what I've been doing. I am an owner of a space industry organization. I'm interested in opportunity and I have a social purpose. So the 5 avatars works for me in many ways. We need to make doing business in space no longer space. Not the same way, like, oh my God, that's amazing, that's different. It could be one day you just wake up and go to work. When we do that with airplanes, if you think back to the Wright brothers, they got up in the morning, it was exciting, it was air flight and planes. But at some point it just became the aviation industry. So we need to bring a bigger ecosystem together, accelerate alliances and expand talent. And the way to do that is first by being a nonprofit. I bring that up because we are nonprofit. This is not a profit motive. We need to develop a mechanism or mechanisms that will accelerate this Earth and space-based ecosystem. What I told you is part of our directive. And it needs to be a factorial that if you invested in it, if you put money into this, that it would get so many high returns that you would say, this is definitely worth it for the planet Earth. So we've been working on MirthLink. MirthLink will bring clients and opportunities together. It's a combination tool that combines artificial intelligence, machine learning, platforms, network analysis, computational social science, media, and a variety of other tools combined in a way that those who have seen it have said they've seen nothing like it on this planet today. We'd have 3 modules in there and they all work together: alliance development, community engagement, and governance coordination. And the way you should look at it is that a government, when they see opportunity, opens up alleys and channels for alliances to happen to do business. But education then responds to that by giving people talent. And when the education is being successful, and influences governance. So this whole wheel keeps everything spinning and will help to develop this. In each module, and I'm not going to go over all the details, in the alliance development, we will increase alliances. We'll make them faster, bigger. We'll expand the ecosystem. We'll increase access. We'll show deal flow. We'll redefine the industry. And again, there are about 4 hours of videos just on alliance development that needs to be built. Then there's community engagement. And in community engagement, we're bringing together education, expanding research, improving access and data, being inclusive. we've kind of, within inside of it, there's something called a billion hearts and minds, 1 billion hearts and minds. And that is, there's a belief that if you can get 20% of a population to know something, to learn about something, that population can influence the rest of the others. Well, there's 7.5 billion people on this planet, but not everybody's involved in the space industry. So let's assume that we get to about 1 billion. We'll easily hit the 1.5 billion once we get there. The last one is governance. And what I've learned through this whole experience is that I thought I knew about government or governance. And having lived in Hong Kong for the past 10 years, having lived in Luxembourg for a short period of time, having worked in Indonesia, Bangladesh, South Africa, Israel, Sweden, Russia, Canada, Colombia, is that governance models determine how we thrive. So we're not talking about government, it's governance. And in here, we'll be covering how to remove roadblocks, how to create opportunities and clarity, how to coordinate conversations, how to make sure those in governance have the right discussions and those in governance are held accountable for saying they're going to support the movement and creation of an Earth and space-based ecosystem, or the Mirth ecosystem and the Mirth economy. How does this work? What's the value of it? I gave one presentation. When I was done, Ray Power walked up to me and he said to me, "David, I want to invest in Project Moon Hut." And I didn't know why at the moment. And when we later had a phone call, he shared with me this: "David, I'm buying 250 patents for a very great price, and they will help the space ecosystem. What you're looking to build will give me opportunities that a small investment in Project Moon Hut Foundation, a nonprofit, will give high returns to us as an organization." And I will share with you this, that to build this is less than building a rocket or a Maersk shipping line freight of over $100 million. It's cheaper than building a building. It is cheaper than putting up a reactor or a plant to be able to deliver utilities. This Mirthlink process will have a factorial of not 10x, but it will change the entire future of all species on Earth. It will be 100x return. And that's why we call it a lever or a lever, depending on where you're from. And what a lever is, it's an instrument that you could use to pry something up or move something. And there is a saying, I don't know who by, I forgot, that said, if you give me a lever long enough, I can move the Earth. I can lift the Earth. Well, this is the lever that gets this to be accelerated. And it is also, not unlike the Moon Hut mission, the Moon Hut lever is a technology project. It is the development of a project on Earth. Now, the timeline for this is we start today, and we would like to have and start the build within the next early part of 2021. And by the end of 2022, a working model where everybody can be engaged and be on it and get value across any ecosystem around the world. Now, I talked to you about the social purpose side. You might get this if you're a space person. Yes, David, we have to build this. It sounds cool. You might get this now if you start to see that the ecosystem is very connected. But I'm not a space person and many people aren't. And I can tell you that there's a reason for this social purpose person and why this person is valuable and why you should be thinking about Project Moon Hut. Let me take a jump and spin back to these ideas that I had spoken about earlier. Space creates paradigm shifting. In order to work in space, you have to think differently. You have to think of microgravity, a low Earth gravity, no atmosphere. You have to be thinking about ecosystems and people sharing and living in environments where we need water filtration and air filtration. You have to think differently. I mean, if I right now said to you, you have to build something for the moon, the first thing you would say is, "Oh, I got to learn about the moon." Well, that takes you away from being on Earth. That's why when individuals leave a country and go to another country, they tend to do very well. And the reason is what they learned here is not known here, or what they learn here, they see differently here. And I drew this one way. It could have been everywhere. I lived in Asia for 10 years. I love the entire planet. It just happened to be I was trying to give a picture that could work. So please don't take it personally. But those innovations that were created are used in space, and they end up being used on Earth. We create a tremendous amount of innovations. And even these have spin-offs. Different types of glasses, different types of panels, different types of tooling, different types of aircraft or weather prediction models. Maybe it's not typically the end all. But did you ever think about the companies that didn't make it into space or were too early for space? They created a technology to do something, but it wasn't selected in the bidding process to be on the rocket or on the lander. So what happens is these innovations, these companies don't fold up with 50, 100 employees or 25 employees. They end up turning those innovations back on Earth. There's an individual in India, Gadahar Reddy, who's created a water filtration system for Mars. For Mars. But we're not on Mars. So where is he using it? Water filtration on Earth. But he's also found out, because it's an organic, it can be used as a biomarker and you'd be used to coat planes. So the innovations come back on Earth. They solve challenges such as possibly climate change, such as needs for new materials, for resources. But there's another group even to expand further. These are people who worked in the space industry and worked on something, but then left and started they worked for another company. Maybe they were manufacturing cups. Do you think they're going to forget everything they learned in the space industry? Of course not. It's embedded in there. Maybe they started a business and embedded it in, or started one that goes in this direction. Or they might consult and influence and advise and speak at conferences. All of these thoughts and innovations come back on Earth, and they improve how we live on Earth. And they can be redirected if thought through in a different manner. Earth has many challenges today. It has many that we're facing. And different people are solving them in different ways. And that's fantastic that they're working on it. The United Nations has what's called the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them. It's 17 is a lot. I can't remember all of them, and I've asked at least 100 people that. Can they name all 100? They can't. So it's a focus. It's a focus. There's no mechanism to make it happen. It is promoting the idea that these 17 must be addressed. And that's good. That's good that they're working on it. Yet at Project Moonhot, we see that there are 6 mega challenges. 6. A 9-year-old can remember this. A 12-year-old can remember this. There is climate change, mass extinction, social displacement, resource depletion, explosive imbalance, and political unrest. Let me go over them shortly and then show you how they're all connected. Climate change covers everything from sea level water rise to hurricanes and typhoons to the heat and temperature changes that happen. Well, remember, I told you it was minus 150 degrees Celsius on the cold side and plus 100 on the hot side. Well, the solutions that come out will impact that. Mass extinction. The last black rhino of one certain type died 2 years ago. And I was on the phone, ironically, today with a person from South Africa. And he said he was there and they helped to film the last days of this rhino. We lose 200 species every day on this planet, 200 out of the 50 million that we have. The big ones tend to go first, but we have amoebas and small through large that are disappearing. Do you want your world in the next 40 years to be like that? Social displacement and physical displacement, but social displacement from artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, 3D printing, sensor tech, all are contributing to a displacement. Not that it's bad. Our world has become better and better in many ways. The challenge is that in the past we were able to absorb those individuals quickly or in a period of time, so that when the Germans were shipbuilders, they eventually became auto builders. But what are they building next? Well, in China, I have seen factories with 1,000 people be cut to 200. What happens to those 800 people who've been working in the same industry their whole lives now being replaced by robotics? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying we're going to have challenges with social displacement. We have resource depletion. Now, what is that? That is the loss of resources, and the best example is the rainforest. We are cutting down, according to satellite imagery over a year ago, we cut down in 1 month, 750 square kilometers. To give you, if you know distances in the United States, that would be everything between Los Angeles and San Francisco cut in a square, equivalent to if you were you got in a car and traveled at 16 miles per hour or 90 kilometers per hour for somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 hours. And all of that was clear cut in just 1 month. A tremendous amount of timber was cut. Can't bring that back. And we're going in the wrong direction. Last year in the rainforest, 3,000 square miles was cut. The year before was 1,750. We doubled it. And if you think about plastics and plastics in the ocean, it's been projected that we'll have 5 times the amount of plastics in the ocean at the rate we're going. We're not stopping what's going on. We also have this explosive imbalance. This is a category that covers things such as overfishing or overconsumption of meat. We consume about 87 billion animals per year and 1.2 trillion water creatures every year, with only 7.5 billion people. That's unsustainable. The North Korean population has 3,000 vessels in the water fishing. China has 200,000, 800,000. They're feeding their people. That's not the challenge. The challenge is we have to be able to meet these needs. And instead of pointing fingers, maybe space is the solution. And then we have political unrest. Political unrest is going to come about because of a variety of things today. The nationalism we've seen, the approach that individuals have to ownership, and the amount of disparity of wealth. While I lived in Hong Kong, we had the largest disparity of wealth on the planet. It meant that we had the wealthiest of wealthiest and the poorest of poorest living in the same country. Now, what if to solve these 6 challenges, instead of being reductive, telling people they can't have, they can't do, they can't be, we use a counterintuitive approach? What if by solving for space and getting to the moon in space, we end up creating the innovations that impact our 6 mega challenges? And I can demonstrate how this counterintuitive approach would end up changing how we live. For example, I gave you the example of NOPO. We can change our future just by accelerating the Earth and space ecosystem. You'll always hear me use the 7.5 billion as a number, a benchmark. So my challenge is that while everybody's working on these SDGs and they're working on their initiatives, one of the challenges that I've had is I've gone around the world and I've spoken to people who pick up oceans and pick up plastics out of oceans and take care of the rainforest. I've spoken to people who protect animals, rhinoceros and elephants. And if I ask them in private, you're not going to be there, but if I ask them in private, how's it working for you? I get the exact same response every single time. It's not. We are not making progress. We might be making progress in certain areas, but realize we add 70 million net gain humans to this planet every year, 80 million. And out of that 80 million, the majority of them are in impoverished countries. And what's the way to help them grow is we want to make them consumers. The Chinese built a landfill that was supposed to last for 50 years. They filled it in 25. When you solve for space, you think differently. When you solve for space, you believe in a circular economy. You have to reuse everything you've got. You can't go back and dig some more up because it doesn't exist. You'll be living in a gig economy. People will be doing different routines because there might be 35 people. You'd be sharing resources. It would be a new way of life to live in this environment, which would influence Earth. Let me give you a simple example. I have 13 hammers in my home. all different types, from drywall to roofing to traditional, different lengths. I live in a community with about 10 homes. I have more tools than you can imagine, from Milwaukee and table saws that from Ryobi. I'm a big Milwaukee fan. And I don't use them all the time, but my neighbors don't have access to them. But when you're in a space station, how many hammers do you need if you have 8 people? 1, 2? This would teach us new ways of being able to share and work together. I kind of see it like Indiana Jones. You know Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones went and searched for some items, some relics. What if, just what if in those type of movies, and you've seen this, where someone has to collect 6 keys, and if they put them in the lock and turn them, it opens it. We have to solve these simultaneously. Climate change impacts political unrest, because if in fact sea level waters rise 15 cm or 6 inches, the 17,500 islands of Indonesia will be in trouble in certain cases. Maldives will be gone. The River Thames up in near England is going to have severe challenges. Florida would probably eventually become a sand dune. Now you're thinking, David, you're only talking that much. But that much is significant, because it means the water is warmer, the cyclones, the typhoons are larger, the storms are bigger, and the tidal surges are tremendously larger. I won't go into all the details, but that would create displacement and political unrest. If individuals are, because of things like the pandemic, companies are going to be adding technology so that they don't have to worry about humans. What if we had infinite new possibilities in this new ecosystem? Realize when this ecosystem builds, these individuals are working. They're earning money here on Earth. See, it's a counterintuitive approach. We're not solving Earth. We're solving for space, which solves Earth. They all mix. Mass extinction, terrible for humans. The bees are gone, we're in trouble. Social displacement causes political unrest. Resource depletion enhances climate change. It kills off animals. They're all connected. And if you've ever been or watched Star Trek or any of these space-related travels, did you ever notice they didn't have cows picking pigs, chickens on their vessels? No. They used 3D printing or a replicator using protein-based and plant-based, and they were able to feed everybody on their vessel. Now, the Star Trek Enterprise, we have so many things that came out of that type of thinking. That is space-based thinking. And we have things such as the tricorder devices to be able to see inside bodies. We have the screens, the tablets. We have computers that can do. We have voice translating systems, and so much more. This is the Moon Hut purpose. The Moon Hut purpose drives the mission. The lever improves the mission. The missions help the purpose. The mission needs the lever. A few last notes about Project Moon Hut itself. We choose no winners. We're like Switzerland. Our technology will not pick one over another. We give equal opportunity for everybody to be able to participate. Being a nonprofit, we also don't have that same challenge of having to meet quarterly expectations. And we accelerate that Earth and space-based ecosystem for all species. It's not reductive. We don't go around telling people you can't have, you can't do. What we're doing is showing a new future with hope and possibilities. There's this word that there's abundance, but to me, abundance has a yin and a yang to it. The abundance means you need scarcity, but infinite means that we have all we need. Imagine if space-based solar power or some type of technology can beam to Earth and give everybody during the winter the ability to have heat, and everybody during the summer the ability to have a means by being cool. What the world would be like. We'd give hope and direction to a future. And I'm hoping that you want to get on board for this future. Get involved in figuring out how you can be a part of the development of the moon and the 4 phases. Get involved in helping us to build our Mirthlink platform and help us to fund it. And help us to help individuals to be innovative and solve the challenges, because we will solve the challenges we have on Earth. As someone recently said to me who's been in the business for over 30 years, in his entire life, he has never seen a full defined ecosystem with a purpose that demonstrates how building Mirth and the Moon-Earth ecosystem and how the economy can impact our future for generations to come. This is for not only for you, but it's for all species on Earth. Join Project Moon Hut. We're looking forward to hearing from you.